How significant is the Ice Silk Road as a strategic alternative to traditional maritime choke points, especially in the current geopolitical climate?
Hello, thank you for inviting me. So apparently, this new route for China is to try to find a new way for having the China-Europe trading road other than the Suez Canal and also the uh, Cape of the Good Hope. Two routes, because of the two routes. The Suez Canal is the major one, but it has to bypass a lot of so-called choke points that is controlled by the U.S. military. And for the Cape of the Good Hope, it would be too far away. It would be too costly for China doing trade with Europe. So that's why, because of the Arctic, the ocean is now, the ice level is going to break down. So that's why China would like to make use of these shorter routes to do trade with Europe. But of course, these actions from China, it would raise the alertness from the United States, of course, because United States put the Arctic Ocean is going to be the next focus for its national security as well. Because so that's why I would say the Washington is watching closely whether China is going to make use of the new Arctic route to do trade with Europe.
Now, how scalable is this Arctic route? And what are the main logistical and environmental challenges that could limit its use to a seasonal or niche service rather than a mainstream shipping lane?
Because this route is much shorter, but for China they need to bring the so-called icebreaker ships, so that to take the leading the fleets, so that because the fleets cannot just break the ice easily, but they need the icebreaker. So that's why I would say the volumes of the goods that could be transported through these routes is still very limited compared to now the current Suez Canal and also maybe the Cape of the Good Hope route. But I would say China is doing some trial at this moment and also sending a message to the world that is, okay, China now is trying to develop a new route, is trying to test the actions and also the reactions from the Washington. So I would say whether this route could bring the really a certain amount of volumes of goods or trade between China and Europe is not really the first priority. The priority and also the main actions for China is to test whether the Washington would have any actions or reactions for this Arctic route, because China is also the observer member of the Arctic Council, and this Arctic Council is most of them are the NATO members, and also including Russia. So I would say whether China's actions in the Arctic oceans, I would say it would depend on the China-Russia relations in the coming years. Mm-hmm. And I would say the Russia in the coming years, because of the Russian-Ukrainian war, Russia would depend a lot on the finance and economy from China. So China's presence in the Arctic Ocean maybe have a bigger role, I would say, in the future, and it could be used by the Russia and China as well to try to counterbalance or influence from the United States and the Western nations.
Now, the 170 trillion yuan injection into the real economy is an enormous sum. Now, how effective has this directed credit been in achieving its policy goals, such as upgrading manufacturing, boosting self-reliance in technology, versus potentially adding to debt burdens?
Hello, can you repeat the questions because of the connection problems? Can you repeat the whole questions? Sorry.
Yes, yes. Let me
Okay.
here start. Now, there is a 170 trillion yuan that have been injected into the real economy. And
Okay.
this is an enormous sum. Now, how effective has this directed the credit been in achieving its policy goals? For an instance, upgrading manufacturing, boosting self-reliance in technology, definitely that versus potentially adding to the debt burdens. So what do you think here?
Okay, first of all, the debt, the problem, yes, China is also suffering a huge debt problem. But remember, the renminbi or the Chinese yuan is not really freely trade around the world. So that means the so-called debt problem, it could be easily canceled by certain financial tools by Beijing as well, because whether the state enterprises, whether the so-called the big companies are also under very strictly controlled or strictly supervised by Beijing. So that's why that means that Beijing can print money easily. Beijing can cancel the so-called debt easily, but of course it can make use of a
So you think, Mr.
amount.
Kwok, so you think,
Yeah.
Mr. Kwok, here that sum, that enormous sum, would enable China to, in achieving its policy goals?
Okay. Yes, I would say yes. What do I mean? Yes, that is because you're seeing China is trying to upgrade its industrial industries. That is try to shift the focus. In the past, that is to try to boom up the property market, and now the property market is already dead already. And now China is focusing and putting a lot of money on the so-called AI, so-called the semiconductors, and try to first, of course, is to match with the pace of the United States, and also to try to export its so-called, low, less best, second best qualities, to try to export this kind of AI and the high tech and the semiconducting products to the developing countries,
Right.
or to some countries that could not afford the Western technologies. So I would say yes, Beijing, it could be effective to putting a lot of money on pulling up and to cherry picking these kind of industry, because these industries need
Yes.
a lot of money, and only China, other than the United States,
Very clear.
could have the financial power to do so.
Very clear, Mr.